Hello and welcome to Whisky Sisters podcast. I am Inka Larissa.
And I am Jennifer Rose.
Together we will bring you a monthly whiskey podcast where we will be discovering drams, exploring distilleries and talking to industry experts and catching up with our whiskey pals.
We will be sharing exciting whiskey adventures, sticking our noses into some whiskey news, keeping our drams on fire, of course, and cutting through any industry bullshit. So, buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Welcome to the Whisky Sisters podcast with Inka and Jen.
Welcome, whiskey movers and shakers. Welcome to our episode where we have our whiskey pal section. And we have a guest presenter. Yes, for the first few minutes of this recording, we are joined by Murdo the puppy. So his first podcast appearance. Hope it's not too disruptive to anyone with dog phobias. Hello, Inka.
Hi, that's funny because I was actually going to ask you in a minute, how is it going with the new baby dog?
Yes, I unexpectedly have him in the recording studio tonight. He's smelled his first whiskey and I think it's actually overstimulated him. So there's quite a lot going on in the background here. So apologies for any disruption, Inka.
So yeah, today the focus is on all things wine casks and we have 4 single malts to try. 2 peated and 2 non-peated. So we got 2 Glencadams, 1 Raasay and 1 Lagg.
That's quite the lineup, Inka.
Yeah, well, I think it's quite nice to okay, it's 2 Glencadams, it's kind of the same in that way, but it's nice to have the contrast how wine can impact whether it's peated and, so on. And especially Raasay and Lagg are both heavily peated. But as you can hear from my voice, I'm severely hay fever allergic. So
I know any new listeners, Inka does not normally sound like this, and regular listeners, doesn't she sound a poor soul?
You don't think I have more sexier?
No, I think you
voice?
think ill as anything. But I'm sure a few of our listeners will find it very sexy, Inka.
Oh, damn it. I've tried some of those before and I did manage to, that's why I probably sound more blocked because I just did some nosing. So, but let's see how we get on.
Hopefully by the end of the episode, it'll have cleared your tubes.
Yeah.
Whisky Sisters!
We don't really have much of a news section today, but you did send me something on the WhatsApp. I was wondering if you want to mention it now before we get started with the whiskies. There was something about Metallica, Tom Russell.
Yeah, for sure. For those of you that have been tuning in before, you may have listened to her episode 61, where our whiskey pal and absolute rock legend Tom Russell, oh my God, my heart is beating just thinking of his loveliness. So he's actually starting his own podcast. And this is something he had mentioned, we had this conversation together because he has such a wealth of rock knowledge and experience that's all currently archived. So there was an announcement this week on his social media that podcast access all areas, the Tom Russell tapes, is soon to be released. And it's about his kind of rock. It's not whiskey specific, although there might be some whiskey featuring in it. But because rock and whiskey is so interlaced, we thought some of you guys might be interested to check that out. So it's based on his rock interviews over the past 45 years.
So cool.
For sure.
Interviews with Metallica, for example, that has never been published. So
yeah, and I think as you mentioned Metallica, I think it's from the 90s with James and Lars. So super cool, amazing stuff from the archives. I'm actually really looking forward to listening to that. Maybe, Tom, are you listening to this podcast? Do you want to invite us on? Not that we have anything to input, but just because we would like to feature on it.
Oh my God, we'll bring the whiskey.
Yeah. Let's invite ourselves. We'll get in touch with Tom and invite ourselves. So watch this space.
Yeah. When did you say it will be out, or is it out already?
I don't think on the publication I read there were no dates, but I'm going to keep my eyes open. We'll contact Tom Russell and we'll share anything on socials when we get any update.
Fun. Also, quick bit of news that I've just seen in the last couple of days. Obviously, there's some stuff from the US towards Canada those 25% tariffs and stuff. But I thought it was, I don't know if it's funny. I don't think funny is the right word, but like there's been many videos on social media and also just, I'm pretty sure, I think I saw something in the news as well. But basically, a lot of Canadian online booze stores and like shops as well are literally removing every single American whiskey bottle or any like
Wow.
American spirit from their shelves, from their online store. You can't literally buy any, which is
Wow.
crazy. Like, I feel bad for the amazing American whiskey producers, but then at the same time,
You understand the business perspective of the Canadians.
yeah, but like also just the whole situation is so stupid. This guy is just starting arguments, where it wasn't needed. Like I don't get it. So in a way, because he's kind of just so stupid and just like you can't even comprehend sometimes what he does and how he thinks. So I can see why Canadians are like, this is like extreme, but then at least you're making a severe point, like almost like you have to fight with his terms. You know what I mean?
So I wonder how things are going to pan out. And it makes me think of our Whisky Pals in Canada, of which we have many, particularly Whisky Mike, Whisky Morg, those of you that have heard him on our Whisky Pals section before, and how that'll impact, sample access and everything, I know that's maybe more for, listener pleasure and enthusiast pleasure, and when there's maybe much wider business implications, but it affects so many people, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's extreme. People have to act because what else can you do? Can't
We
just
should
take it.
We should take a stand for what we believe in, brothers and
Exactly.
sisters of the world. Inka, I hope our chat isn't having the effect on the listeners as it's having in Murdo, because he went from quite enthused to absolutely like falling asleep. So he's bored.
For now, when he's
For
a little
now,
bit
yeah.
older, he'll like all the whiskey chat.
Whisky Sisters.
There are many wine casks used in whiskey maturation these days. Anything from red varieties, from Bordeaux, Burgundy, parts of Italy as well, like Amarone, like from the Glencadam that we're trying today. There's some whites, such as Tokaji, Champagne, Chardonnay, and so on. Basically, the world is your oyster when it comes to wine casks and whiskey.
Yeah.
And they do often work well with both peated and non-peated spirits, which is nice.
Very nice.
And the flavor range varies based on the grape variety. Some red wines are spicier and full-bodied, while others are lighter and fruitier. And white wine casks can bring buttery texture and grassy flavors as well. A lot of new distilleries like Lochley and Lindors, and they're using those STR casks that are usually rejuvenated red wine casks. So that's been very popular recently. So obviously the flavors wouldn't be as intense, but still you get some elements of those red wine notes from those as well. But do you have any favorite wine cask finishes or full wine cask maturation? Anything that comes to mind? I know it's kind of...
I might have mentioned before, but I really enjoyed a tasting of a Glenmorangie Barolo red wine cask finish once. It was so just plump and delicious. And one of our episodes covered the Portuguese cask finishes by Tomatin.
Yeah.
And I thought the Madeira cask finish of their range was, that absolutely sticks in my mind.
Oh, yeah. Would be interesting to see what you think of the Glencadam Madeira then.
So what about yourself? Because you're like on the sauce again, Inka, blogger, award winner, extraordinaire of all things boozy. You know a lot about wine. So I'm keen to know your answer to the same question.
Actually, it's quite tricky. I remember probably one of the first few ones that I really enjoyed and great value drams were Glenmorangie as well, the Chardonnay, and I always forget, is it Bordeaux or Burgundy?
I thought Bordeaux, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, one of the red wines, but also the Chardonnay was really nice. And I like the price points because it's kind of part of their core range as well. Then obviously, Raasay Bordeaux has been intriguing, like when I've tried it before. And obviously now this 5-year-old is interesting. It's not quite what I was expecting, but intriguing. What else? I can't remember now. Oh, well, Adnamaken, obviously, Paolo Lanois
Oh my God, how
champagne.
could I have forgotten that champagne pup? Oh, we're still fizzing after that tasting. And we're still fizzing with rage that we never sourced a bottle of any of the Paul Lanoir
I
releases.
know. I always keep commenting on all that, and I think they just think I'm weird because I'm obsessing over their Paul Lanois releases.
But we
And I
are,
can't
we're
believe you
quickly.
never got that 10-year-old. That was PL as well.
I know. I wonder if I thought I'd completed the purchase but didn't do a verification or something. Have you
Yeah.
ever done that? Like I was having a few whiskeys
Yeah.
watching the awards and I was like, I ordered it. Then I was like, where is that bottle? It's never came. But then I couldn't find the order details.
I know.
I'm also interested to hear if you have any thoughts around Lagg's Tokaji comparatively to the Glasgow distilleries.
I know,
Tokaji
that's what
cask
I was trying
finish.
to remember, how
Because I
that
remember,
was.
yeah, when we were doing the whiskey festival with them, that was a, much talked about cask finish of theirs. So yeah.
Yeah, so but I think there's quite a few these days. There's much more choice than some a few years ago, which is fun and interesting, really.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's funny how you can just like even if like say the Amarone, for example, like Aaron Amarone
Mm-hmm.
is very sweet and kind of almost like I want to say like slightly syrupy, and there's so much dark chocolate and marmalade and red berries and stuff. But it's so different to this Glencadam Reserva di Amarone that we're gonna try in a minute.
Mm.
So
That,
like you can have the same kind of wines, but then
yeah, you could perm the hair of two different people, but the overall look is totally different because of the merging. Is that a good analogy, or maybe I'm going a wee bit off there? But yeah,
I like it,
it's
you
how my
know.
brain works.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe I had a perm. Jesus.
I loved a perm. I'd have a perm again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I used to spend all my Christmas and birthday money when I lived in the Isle of Mull. I'd save it up and I'd go to the big Glasgow, and I used to go to this hairdresser in West Nile Street called Rita Rusk, I still remember it, and spend an utter fortune. And I used to ask for a slash from Guns N' Roses.
Oh my God, that's funny.
I'd be there all day and I couldn't even get the scrunchie around my hair. It was so big at the end. I loved a perm.
Yeah, I think if you had a perm now, your hair's so short that it'd just be.
Yeah, I'd look like an old lady.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So anyway, back to Amarone. So Amarone della Valpolicella is an Italian wine made using partially dried grapes. And the best Amarone wines are famous for their intensely concentrated flavors of candied strawberry, dried cinnamon, dried cinnamon. Sorry. Candied strawberry, dried cherries, cinnamon spice, chocolate, and cocoa. Cocoa? Cocoa? I don't know how to say it. I always say cocoa, like, have a
So
little
do
hot.
I. I
But
say
it's
that as well.
co co
Coca,
cocoa? Cocoa? I don't know.
cocoa,
Like
coca.
the
That
proper
sounds
stuff.
like cocaine. I would just
Yeah.
stick with cocoa.
Yeah. Oh, funny. So Amarone della Valpolicella has some of the longest oak aging requirements in Italy. Even like the kind of more regular inverted commas Amarone wine must be aged for at least 2 years. And for the Riserva, the minimum period is 4 years, although most tends to be 5 to 7 years aging. It's made in Veneto region near Lake Garda. So yeah, this is basically fairly dry red wine with rich and complex flavors, velvety mouthfeel. And what makes Amarone interesting for whiskey making is the type of casks the distillers are using. So Amarone can be aged in anything from like French oak to Slavonian oak to cherry, acai, or chestnut, for example. So obviously the type of wood will also have big impact.
Yeah, will have an effect.
And it's gonna add red fruity notes, red currants, cranberries, cherries, then some spiciness of black peppers and other spices, and kind of that just red wine vibes. I don't know, it's hard to explain, like, when you just get the kind of like
Yeah.
the taste of red wine.
I love the way you say Amarone della Valpolicella. That sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Dram on fire.
Glencadam Reserva di Amarone. 46% ABV, started in ex-bourbon and finished in Amarone casks for 18 to 24 months. And the casks they were used at the distillery were 400 liters in size and made from French oak. So let's stick our noses in these and see what are you getting.
Okay, so for the Amarone finish on the Glencadam, for the colour I've got a kind of muted creamy amber.
Yeah, I wrote more like pale gold, but I don't know.
See, I was doing my tasting outside and it was sunny, so I don't know if that's impacted. But I kind of like, unlike I would have thought, you know, as you've just been saying about the red fruits, red currants and stuff, that wasn't what I got in the nose. I was getting very much juicy, ripe peaches, very ripe pears, you know, that are all like loads of like liquid coming off them. They're so juicy. On the nose, an unlit cigar, that lovely fresh tobacco with mild oakiness, and even got a bit of a floral. And I thought, is that like a rosy laundry detergent, but not soapy and gross, like kind of fresh and alluring?
Nice. I definitely got more of that fragrant notes like on the finish. Before I got this blocked, I managed to get dried fruits, cranberries, blueberries. Dried fruits more like other types of dried fruits, and then cranberries and blueberries and some baking spices.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
I thought it was quite powerful on the nose. Did you? I know you're blocked, but for me, it was like there was a lot going on.
I got more I found the Madeira a bit more, I don't know, but I'm blocked, so I can't be 100% sure. I left some on the sample, so I can, once I, later on, I can try again.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
How about the palate then?
I got less kind of ripe peach, maybe like new peach, but with a hint of the peach stone and a bit of powdered ginger heat, but still quite a kind of sour gooseberry pie fruitiness.
Okay.
I wondered if I've mixed up your sample.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but then I would expect, based on what I know about Madeira and Amarone, I would expect, I think I would know if they would be mixed up. I mean,
okay, good.
Madeira is like sweeter wine. So it depends what you say on the next one. Do you have the full bottles, or did you have a small sample?
Yeah, I had the full bottles. So, and
okay, so yours are definitely
I got
the right one.
sweeter on them. Yeah, I thought, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's interesting to hear the comparisons, isn't it?
So on the palate, I was getting strawberry jam, white pepper, some ginger, orange cake, more baking spices on the palate as well. And the finish, I had dark chocolate coated strawberries, nutmeg, a bit of oakiness. There was something fragrant, like almost reminded me a little bit of cherries in that kind of syrup, but without being sweet, but just the fragrant aroma of it. But I found the finish very short.
Okay. I find it kind of short to medium. I really like the strawberries and chocolate idea. I didn't get anything hugely clear, just kind of put biscuity finish. But as you were saying, nutmeg, I can be aboard with that. I liked it more than I thought I would. What about you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think, now actually it's been in the glass for a while and I had a sip and it's instantly quite chocolatey for me, dark chocolate.
Oh.
There's definitely some comparison to the Amarone, the Aran one, at least what kind of notes I'm getting. So it makes sense. But Aran is just a bit, you know how Aran is anyway, like from last month's when we tried the 10-year-old. It's just different texture basically altogether. But yeah, it's nice. I'm definitely going to try it again once I'm not so blocked and see if I can discover a bit more.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I have to say I was probably more excited about this Madeira one.
Oh, okay. I'm keen to hear about that. So, as Inka says, next we have Glencadam's Reserva de Madeira, or Madeira, if I was pronouncing it properly. But I'll go back to saying back in the day, Madeira wines were taken on board for enjoyment and brandy was added to each barrel to make it last longer without going off on those big old long sea voyages across the Atlantic. And the heat of the ship's hold was found to have a dramatically improved wine flavour, making them much richer, more complex. And in the 18th century, winemakers apparently experimented with replicating this process on land because it was so tasty for the seafarers. So without getting into too much of the details of the production of Madeira, one difference between it and sherry is that Madeira is heated whilst aging. There are many different styles of Madeira to choose from, similarly to sherry. Inka, I'm sure, has like a blog on, a big, huge blog doodah on sherry, don't you, Inka?
Yes, I do. A few,
A few
different ones.
Yeah. So they range in style from dry to extremely sweet. Flavours generally tend to be caramel, dried fruit, and baking spices. Madeira can be from white or red grapes.
Yeah, and the Madeira wines can last for ages,
Yeah.
and a vintage Madeira can last for a century or more if unopened.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And even when it's open, it can still last for months. But here's a wee tip for you. So if you ever buy a bottle of Madeira, look out for the name of the grape variety on the label of the bottle. Most labels list the grape used, and if one is mentioned, then that means that the contents will have to have at least 85% of that variety.
Oh, that's good to know. When we spoke about Madeira before, both of us thought we would quite like to go there, but neither of us have made it as yet.
No, but definitely, yeah, I would really love to go.
It's meant to be super pretty and a bit like Hawaii and loads of amazing flowers and hills. And yeah, it's meant to be lush.
Oh, we need to organize a trip. But yeah, Tinta Negra is the most used variety at the moment. It's about 85 to 90% of Madeira's entire production.
Wow.
But still, like, they use loads of other grape varieties anyway, so it's just a good one to have a wee look of the label.
Definitely. So, as you may know, Madeira can add subtle fruity notes, honey, chocolate, caramel and cinnamon to the whiskey. And maybe a bit like the Amarone, Glencadam Reserva de Madeira is bottled at 46% ABV and aged in ex-bourbon, finished for 18 to 24 months in Madeira barriques made from French oak. And the grape variety used, as Inka mentioned, Tinta Negra, which is a hybrid variety and was created by crossing Pinot Noir with Grenache. And both of these whiskies, Glencadam whiskies, staying affordable, I think, are sold at around £47 British.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Right, what have you got for the colour of the Madeira?
Dark gold.
Yeah, I've got off the charts amber, so you've definitely not got the wrong sample.
Yay. Wouldn't be unusual.
I know. We would be consistently wrong because of me. Yeah, but no.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We are, in fact, on point. I sent Inka the right ones. What did you get on the nose for this then?
So I managed to get some dried fruits as well, but more like a more intense and sweeter way than the previous one. Some sort of kind of dense cake, those coffee cakes.
Okay.
I bought this banana cake the other day, but I'm not getting any banana, but like it was just one of those like really thick slices and it was kind of moist
Almost
and nice.
chewy moist.
Yeah. So something like that, but not the banana, but
and it leaves some cake dew on the plate because it's been so luscious and moist.
Sweaty cake.
Yeah, sweaty cake.
Yeah, there was some nutty nougat aromas going on as well, but I couldn't really get anything else, and now I can't get anything.
That's super interesting. My glass has been my whiskey's been in the glass, for a good while now, and I'm getting much more. When I originally nosed it, I was a bit disappointed I really felt I had to super nosedive into the glass, move my glasses out the way, all that jazz. So at first I found it more subtle red fruits, including kind of squashed raspberries, red fruit jam, berry hubba bubba. And then when I did my nosedive, I got some marzipan. Then I was getting buttery baked oats. So I was interested when you said about the sweaty cake. So, something kind of buttery and oaty and maybe like done with blueberries.
Nice.
I'm actually enjoying it more in the nose now.
I know, I wish I could smell.
Well, it's really like, like red fruits, like plump, like purpley fruits. And feels much more full-bodied than it did before, almost like it just needed a wee bit of time to blossom into itself on the nose for me.
Well, on the palate, I was getting a fair bit of cinnamon, cooked peaches, apricot. It even had I felt like it had a different kind of mouthfeel to the previous one. Like the previous one was kind of spicier. This felt like almost, I don't know, I wrote down like drier, but I don't think it's not like a dry, there's just something fizzy. I don't know, like something different on the palate.
Yes, there is something fizzy. Correct.
Good.
Honestly, I so get that.
Yeah, good. And then some maybe like amaretto,
Mhm.
and maybe even a tiny bit of some cherry, or like, those in the gooey syrup kind of cherries
For
for
sure.
cocktails.
Okay, I feel kind of similar-ish, but maybe you'll think, no, Jen, your notes are crazy. But at first I got a kind of rubber band rubberiness that wasn't unpleasant, although that's gone now. Quite sour grapes, but not unpleasantly sour. Sour cherry sweets, maybe the ones that are kind of fizzy and worse. And I got some vanilla cake batter, but maybe a little hint of that marzipan that was there on the nose. I found I was struggling to describe it, but the kind of sweetness was a subtle sweetness. I don't know if you've ever tried Abernethy biscuits, a Scottish kind of biscuit it's a wee bit like shortbread. Anyway, I got them on the palate.
Interesting.
But I found like it a bit fizzy and a bit bitter lemony on the finish, which I found really surprising.
Oh, I was getting like chocolate coated nuts or coffee or something. Coffee, the coffee beans they give sometimes with your coffee. Yeah, I don't know. Like I was enjoying it till I got plugged again, but I don't know. Did you prefer the other ones? How to
I
tell
think I
whether
did.
you're
I think I did prefer the other one, and for me, how we think about like when you have a romantic relationship with a whiskey brand or a place, it can really conjure up a lot of like emotional, enjoyment and pleasure of your whiskey and embody it. So I guess when I saw the bottles, I saw the colour of the Madeira one. I really loved the Tomat and Madeira finish. I guess, just expected to prefer that.
Yeah, on the Madeira one, it reminds me a wee bit of the 15-year-old, like the texture wise or something. There's some familiar flavors there that I like.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I think both of them are pretty damn fine and I'd happily sip away on either of them to a band playing. So thanks, Glencadam, as always.
Unleash the peat.
Okay, let's go on the peat side. So Raasay, I guess let's start with the Raasay Bordeaux. Bordeaux region has over 3,000 wineries, which is incredible. Bordeaux is made from the red grape varieties of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec, and white grape varieties Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc, Muscadel, Uni Blanc, and Colombard, or something like that. My friend's not very good. However, only about 20% of Bordeaux wines are actually white.
Oh, really?
Yeah, how interesting. I don't think I've had many. I can't remember. So yeah, I think in whiskey they use mainly red wine casks, but I might be wrong. There might be some white wines. Who knows?
Yeah.
And many appellations and grape varieties give Bordeaux wines different aromatic characteristics. Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, has blackcurrant, cedarwood, loads of tannins and acidity. And when it comes to this Raasay bottling, Bordeaux red wine casks were delivered fresh to the island from the chateau of southwest France. And in the first few months of the maturation, the spirit had this nice pink hue from the casks, and then it turned deeper and darker red. Guess where I'm going to be on my birthday this year?
Oh, dun dun dun.
I'm going to go to Raasay and try my cask, my Bordeaux big giant cask.
That's amazing, Inka.
I'm going to get a birthday picture with my cask.
That's gorgeous. So nice. I love your stories of going there before, your relationship with Raasay and, your love affair with their whiskies from way back and your cast journey.
I know. Last time I was there was also my birthday, so I'm super excited to go back.
That's
It's
lovely.
stunning.
Oh, lots of social media spamming when you're there.
Yeah, incoming. Okay, so basically, Raasay, they do peated and unpeated expressions, single casks every 2 years with the Bordeaux. So this one that we're trying is the 5-year-old, and then they do another one at 7, and so on. And also, both peated and non-peated ex Bordeaux is used in the blend of the core range Dram release. which also has ex-rye cask and ginkgo as well. And the 220-liter Bordeaux red wine casks used are made from two oak species, Quercus patria and Quercus robur.
It's easy for you to say, Inka.
Adding savory spices whilst the red wine imparts tannins into the new make. The casks were previously used to age 3 different vintages of Bordeaux red wine, resulting in notes like blackberries, plums, and cherries. And this one that you're trying is part of the Slunge Club, because I'm part of it, so I can get first dips. So this one is basically 60.5% ABV, and I think the one for the rest of the public was slightly lower. I think maybe 60.1 or something. So it's like there's slight minor differences between these. And this is from June 2024. So, okay, let's go.
Color-wise, misty yet super vibrant peach, like otherworldly peach. Gorgeous color.
Isn't it just?
So gorgeous. And I actually wasn't looking particularly at which was which of our last two whiskies, and I was just concentrating on my notes. So I've got a very emotional sort of, powerful experience with this whiskey. So on the nose, I got sexy bonfire smoke, not just your average bonfire smoke. I thought there was something kind of exhilarating about it, as if it was the start of an evening that was going to bring some sort of magic. Caramelized bananas, maybe a fleece jacket worn by somebody outdoorsy, but not funky, nice and fresh. New welly boot rubber. So I was getting a whole lot of smoke, a whole lot of like candied sweetness, banana-ish, outdoorsiness and rubberness.
Okay. I think I wrote actually about the color. I wrote down pink copper. Because I saw a card the other day that was colored like pink copper, kind of the color changed in the light, and I felt like the whiskey was the same color.
Good call.
I was getting on the nose salty caramel popcorn.
Nice.
You know those Chinese duck pancakes with plum sauce?
They're tasty, right?
Yeah, I was getting that. And then some of these notes are from today and some of them are from before, because obviously, so I've had this before. I was getting beef jerky, clementine peel, damp mushroomy vibes.
Okay.
Something slightly cheesy, musty or something.
Mm-hmm.
Lingonberry sauce with reindeer or elk or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of surprisingly meaty. I was not expecting it to be so meaty. How about the palate?
The palate, I've got atmospheric on the palate. I got a smoked cheese, bonfire wood wet with rain, the taste of intrigue, buttery shortbread with large plump bits of sugar on top, maybe even like a kick of lemongrass warmth, but also, the juicy pastry of a Danish pastry base. Maybe some chocolate truffles eaten on the beach. It was just like giving, boom, 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 boom.
So nice. Did you think anything about the mouthfeel? Like, do you feel creamy or oily or anything like that?
It just felt sumptuous. Really so luscious. What about you in the palate?
Well, I was getting meaty crisps, like I know I'm on a meat frenzy here. But those like barbecued pork or
Yeah.
something like meaty. Green peppercorn sauce.
Yep.
I couldn't decide whether it was a rowan berry or rose hip, but that kind of slightly acidic, sour red
I'd
berry.
help you, but I don't know the difference between those tastes.
Rowan berries are the tiny little orange ones that when birds eat them, they get drunk. And rose hip is obviously the berry that is in some of the rose bushes. But like in Finland, we eat the rose hips. I don't know if we eat rowan berries, but I've definitely tried them when I was a kid. When I tried it previously, I found it kind of chewy, creamy, a slightly oily mouthfeel. I was getting gammon and something foresty, overripe apple, like almost fermented apple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then on the finish, I was getting Christmas tree branches. I'm not sure why it had to be Christmas tree, like it could have been just any. And then some juniper, like it was definitely some foresty.
Yeah, some kind of botanical herbal vibe.
Yeah.
Very nice. I thought the finish was really quite long, quite tingling, zingy smoked fruits. And I just still felt like that air of anticipation. I was really impressed. and felt I was taking on a bit of a voyage with
Yeah.
this whiskey.
There's definitely a lot going on. It was completely different what I was expecting though. So it'll be really interesting to try. Like I want to try some of the other Bordeaux ones that are non-peated maybe.
Mm.
Also the casks in the warehouse and stuff. Just it will be interesting to see how it compares.
Do you have the full bottle of that one, Inka, or did you have a sample?
Yeah, so I ordered because obviously I get with the because I'm part of the club. I'm part of the club. Um, I always get emails like all the first dips and stuff. So I
Right,
know
right.
because it is it's basically it's the same that I have the cask. So of course I had to buy a bottle to try it and see how it goes. But I haven't told you this. I'm gonna quickly say. So previously because they do also the series of different oak species, and the first one was Colombian oak, and I tried it at Pot Still in Glasgow, and just it was amazing. It was non-peated, amazing. It was like I actually would have guessed that it's from Campbelldown. It was so funky, but
Oh,
like had
really?
that kind of heavy spirit vibes that like from Raasay. So I finally ordered a bottle. So I will send you a sample as soon as I get it, and we can try it. But it's
Amazing.
like I was just so good. One of the best whiskies I've had tried for a long time.
Well, I completely understand why you're so excited by Raasay. That is really pretty special.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. I know it's 50 ppm, so I wasn't sure if it's going to be your cup of tea.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. I wasn't like super excited to try it, to be honest, and really, really enjoyed it. Last up is Lagg Tokaji. Tokaji is a sweet wine made from white grapes and is produced in the north of Hungary and also in the southern parts of Slovakia. And the name is legally protected, and only certain wines from the Tokaji wine region can be officially called Tokaji or Tokay. Can't you say that? Is that
Yeah.
okay? The way I said okay. The wine can be fermented and or aged in traditional 136 litre and 220 litre oak barrels, which can be made using two types of European oak, Kirkes Robur and Kirkes Patria, the latter being more common. And it brings floral, honey, poached pears, toffee apples, apricot notes into the whiskey. And this Lagg, we're massive fans of Lagg. Both of us, if you know, have visited the distillery if you've been listening along the way to our whiskey journeys, albeit at different times. And this Lagg release is fully aged in ex-Tokaji wine casks and is bottled at a bang-a-langin' 58% ABV. Boom! And the peated level is the usual 50 ppm.
Yeah, I've been talking about this whiskey like with some other whiskey people on the socials, and I don't think many had saw it. So I think it was literally released. It might be that it was only available at the distillery, hence I got access to it because I was there last summer.
Okay.
But it was released to celebrate them being the distillery of the year in 2023. But I got the bottle last year.
Okay.
So I
It's
don't know
a
if it was
stunning
just.
distillery, isn't it? It's just so
Oh my
stunning.
God. Yeah, and it was way bigger than I was thinking. But I
So
really
big.
like the bottles as well.
Yeah,
Like, the kind of the vista or the landscape. Only thing that's a
definitely.
bit weird is the topper because it does look a little bit like penis. But I know we're,
Mm.
adults and all that, but it does
But
look a little.
maybe that's deliberate. A lot of things are marketed to look like penises or peni. Is that what you call plural penises?
Why? Because is it aimed for women?
Because it's a man's world.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's just. Maybe it's just. I don't know. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, I know. I can feel it going
Inka
downhill.
likes the penis-shaped bottle.
Anyway, so you know how the bottles are a little bit has this green hue. So in the bottle, it looks almost like really like dark brown color. But in
Yeah.
the glass, it still has a brown hue.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a light mahogany almost.
What did you get on the nose?
Earlier, I was getting licorice powder. We had this licorice powder in Finland that we eat, and it's quite intense. Like it's like a candy, but like it comes in a tube, and then you put powder in your mouth, and it's like, but it's nice. And then teriyaki sauce, I was getting very kind of salty, slightly burnt caramelly sauce, toffee, sticky toffee pudding, maybe something slightly mushroomy. These are some of my notes from before, by the way, if you're wondering.
Nice.
some kind of slight grassy note as well. And then I was thinking, I don't know if this is just me being transferred back to Arran, but like Arran coastal walk with some sheep manure along the way.
Yeah.
Or
But
some like,
again, your mind can't help but make those links of the senses when you have been somewhere, right?
yeah, it's sheep manure when it can be kind of, it's just
Quite
that kind of
raw,
funky. Yeah,
raw
like,
and funky.
well, that's kind of what I was getting. So it's like a sweet, but with grassy notes and coastal vibes.
Very nice. I found the smoke like kind of last night's bonfire smoky, maybe like a bit of a cheese toasty cooking aromas, kind of marshmallowy flumps
Yeah.
on with the toffee sauce. So yeah, but not hugely potent on the nose.
Oh, I was also getting like taco, those taco spice mix that you put in the mincemeat. So I was getting a little bit of that as well.
Oh, cool.
So on the palate on this one, I was getting a lot of yummy toffee popcorn, caramel coated nuts, warming spices, and some rooibos tea, the red tea.
Oh.
And funnily enough, also rosehip, like in the Raasay, I couldn't decide whether it was rowanberry or rosehip, but this one, it was definitely rosehip.
So you're not on your meat feast with this dram?
No, I'm not really. Find it much sweeter and like salty popcorn, caramel popcorns and things like that.
I agree with it being much sweeter. On the palate, I got pineapple done on the barbecue, maybe a chocolatey mousse. Although I don't get it now, I did at the start get a tiny hint of smoked mackerel, but it's much sweeter now and that's gone. Now it's been in the glass a while.
And this one, this is fully matured in Tokaji because Tokaji is quite sweet wine anyway. I've tried it. Have you ever tried it? Like,
No, I've not tried it.
I quite liked it at first when it was really cold, but then it does become quite sweet. But not like a dessert wine, but just sweeter style of white wine. But yeah, on the finish this one, I was getting log fire embers and oak shavings. That's the only time I really get that bonfire-y vibe. Is at the end.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't get it at the finish, and I had got that like subtle bonfiriness on the nose. But I do get a little bit of a kind of ginger zing or something I'm not describing particularly well on the finish, and quite lingery.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a long one. Obviously, this is a bit younger. I don't know the age, but Lagg in general is still quite young distillery, so it kind of maybe just have a little bit more of that kind of fiery
Yes.
kind of vibe. But how would you compare the Lagg and the Raasay? Obviously, quite different. Apart from
Quite
being
different,
heated.
and part of me doesn't want to compare them because
Yeah,
I was so sort of like swept up and blown away by Raasay, but I don't want that to take away from the qualities of Lagg, which I think is a beautifully accessible peated whiskey, super well balanced, a lovely like depth of flavors. So I was, caught up
yeah.
and spun about by Raasay, but really enjoyed the Lagg too.
But I think good examples for people who really intake peat, and loads of people always go Isla, Isla, Isla. But actually, these days you can look further afield, like the Glasgow Distillery or Lagg or, Raasay up north. There's just so much and different styles of peat. So, and still you can get your hefty 50 ppm, They're not shying away from
Yes,
the
definitely.
levels. So,
This month's episode has had 4 banger drams, like so good, such nice quality, and kind of a bit of diversity. What do you reckon?
yeah, exactly. I think definitely diversity and, just showing what the wine casks can impart.
Do you have a standout favourite from today's 4?
Well, I might just be a bit biased, but the Raasay for me. But then, I tried those Peated ones before, and today because I'm a bit blocked, so I'm gonna give another go for the Glencadams. I did, I think the Madeira would still be like from the non-Peated one for me, but I'll report back.
Okay, sounds good.
How about you?
I actually think Raasay today is like
Showstopper.
a bit of a showstopper.
Yeah.
Shockeroony, because I even, who would have thought I'd be playing at Glencadam as usual, but hey.
And Peated. Oh my God.
I know, for sure. But I actually, I really enjoyed them all. Lovely drams.
Neill Murphy.
Massive warm welcome to you, Neill. You have been busy with all sorts of whisky adventures, known as Whisky Neill on social media. Many of you will know who we're talking about anyway, but we would like an introduction from you. So, Neill, who are you? And tell us about your whisky journey. How did you come to love the spirit? All that good stuff.
Okay, well, first, thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here. So my name is Neill Murphy. I'm Whisky Neill on Instagram. I am a Scot on Scotch on Facebook and YouTube. I suppose primarily I am just a lover of whiskey, really. That's about the size of it. But, whenever I get into something, I tend to go all in, so I need to be a bit more involved. And so I write about whiskey, I talk about whiskey, and I host some tastings and stuff. So it all kind of started for me a bit. I think my story's quite similar to most people, actually, in that, when I first encountered whiskey, I thought it was the work of the devil. I thought it was awful stuff. And I think quite a lot of people kind of say that. It seems to be the same for everyone. You taste it when you're maybe a bit too young. And you don't really have the benefit of it, and you drink it like an idiot as well, and you knock it back like a shot, and you swear that you'll never touch it again. But yes, I mean, I had a sort of epiphany. I think it's probably about 15 years ago now. My wife is from the Highlands, and we were actually attending a funeral of a family friend of hers. And I mean, I'd never even met the man, but obviously you're there to show support for the family, And it turned out that when we went to the wake after, it was in a beautiful hotel, a village in the Highlands called Kinlochleven, in the McDonald Hotel. And it's this lovely hotel with a great view down the loch. It's stunning. When we arrived at the wake, you were handed a dram, and it turned out that it was a dram of Highland Park's 12-year-old. At the time, I didn't even know what that was, but, I didn't want to say no because I thought it'd be rude, so I took one. And then I sort of snuck off to the corner of the bar because I didn't want anybody to see me retch, when I took a sip of it. But to my surprise, I took a sip and went, oh my God, what's this, And then I finished it and went straight to the bar and went, can I have more of that, please, And that was it. My life just changed. It turned out that the guy who'd passed away, his favourite dram was Highland Park, so that's why everybody at the funeral got Highland Park,
That's lovely.
It was really nice, yeah. I kind of wish I'd met him now, just to sort of thank him, because inadvertently he's had a huge effect on my life,
Yeah.
Because everything changed from there on. Whiskey just became my passion in life, really.
Because you very humbly mentioned about writing about it there, but you were one of the really early pioneers of whiskey blogging. Am I right?
I wouldn't say that. I think there were plenty around before me. Plenty have been doing it a lot longer. But I mean, I have been going. It's about 10 years now. In fact, it's in October this year. It'll be 10 years since I started writing. And even that kind of came about a bit by accident, really. So in a past life, I was a DJ, which is obviously a lifestyle of late nights and loud music and not a lot of sleep. And then my wife fell pregnant, and the life of late nights and stuff wasn't really an option anymore. So I kind of needed like a new sort of creative outlet. The music wasn't really working anymore. So I decided that I should try. I'd always liked writing in school and stuff. I always liked English. I always liked writing and reading. And so I thought I'd give it a wee go, writing about whiskey. It was actually after a trip to Auchentoshan Distillery, and I did the distillery tour. And at the time, that was maybe about the 5th or 6th distillery I'd been to. And I thought, you could start comparing the different experiences and stuff. And that's kind of where it all started, Just started writing the blog from there. And yeah, 10 years down the line, we're still going,
Nice. Yeah. And I feel like whiskey as a category is busier than ever, really. Obviously, it feels like it's starting to dip a little bit, but there's definitely a lot to write about as well at the moment. So what would you say is your favorite whiskey or whiskey style now? Like, I know this kind of changes, sometimes we love peat and sometimes we go for more bourbon sweetness, but what are you feeling right now?
I mean, so my heart very much lies with Islay. That is probably my favourite place in the whole world, and I love the whiskies from Islay. But I'm very much on a kind of local push at the minute, sort of really enjoying the stuff from Glasgow and the Clyde side, and very much focused on stuff local to Glasgow, you know, which is where I'm based, obviously. So yeah, I think the Glasgow 1770 stuff has been absolutely fantastic of late. So got to give them a shout out because they're doing amazing stuff. Absolutely
So
amazing
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah, and they just they whiskey turned then. So the first cask had their 10-year-old 10th birthday just literally like
Yep.
now.
Absolutely, yeah, which is really exciting. I mean, because again, obviously, I've been doing this a wee while now, and I still remember it opening. You know,
Oh,
Yeah,
it doesn't feel that long ago. So yeah,
I know it's crazy. I actually went to the distillery when they were only doing gin at the time as well, like a long time ago.
yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Yeah, there was only the one set of pot stills and stuff. Now there's two. Yeah, it's great to see though. It's great to see how much it's sort of succeeding and doing well, and it seems to be really building up a following now.
Yeah.
Like the word's getting round just how good the stuff is that they're making. You know.
Yeah, well, the
Um,
episode that we did on them back in the day, this is a long time ago, it's still one of our most listened or most downloaded episode, like
yeah, I
by a
think it's the
mile.
most downloaded episode ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it took
Nice.
over Highland Park like a lot.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
we thought so.
But
Yeah.
talking about Glasgow anyway, what would you say is your favorite thing about Glasgow, like in general?
You mean the city?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because when when you mention to people like, obviously I'm Finnish, and then if I say to people like, oh yeah, my husband is Scottish, oh whereabouts from Glasgow, and everyone's like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, I'll use this opportunity to do a wee plug if that's okay. So, since the end of last year, myself and an old friend, John Maguire, have started our own business. The business is called Scottish Rogue, and we are going to be doing sort of tours and walking tours and, distillery tours, walking tours, whiskey tastings and events and stuff. But it's all very much about sort of really cementing Glasgow as a good place for whiskey lovers to come, because I think people overlook it quite a lot. You know,
Yeah.
like people tend to fly into Glasgow and then disappear somewhere else. You know, they go to Islay or they go to Edinburgh and they do the North Coast 500 and the Isle of Skye and stuff. And people tend to forget about Glasgow, you know, or they're only here for an afternoon a day.
Yeah.
So we're kind of really trying to fly the flag and show people that if you're really into your whiskey, there's so much good in Glasgow. Like, you know, we've got two distilleries within the city. We've got Jackton, which is only a 15-minute drive away in East Kilbride. And if you increase your travel time to about 45 minutes or so, there's about 7 or 8 distilleries you can reach from Glasgow. So it's really cool the amount of stuff that's going on here. We've got great whiskey bars, great restaurants, great shops that are, sharing the word of whiskey. You know, there's so much here for people to enjoy. So this is very sort of prescient for us just now because we are trying to overcome those boundaries. You know, those things that people view Glasgow in a certain light, and I don't think it's necessarily justified anymore. The city obviously has its problems, but then so does every major city in the world. You know.
Sure.
But to go back to your sort of original question, I think my favourite thing about Glasgow, it's got to just be the people and the sort of vibe of the place, you know. I'll tell you a wee quick story about. So there was one night I went into the Pot Still in Glasgow, and it was a Saturday night. So I'm sure you know the Pot Still is always crazy busy, especially on a Friday and Saturday night. We had just been to a tasting round in the Good Spirits Company, and we were going for a quick pint afterwards. And we walked in the door and it was, just mobbed. There was not a seat to be had anywhere. And I had my sister with me who's got some mobility issues. So it was a bit of a problem if we couldn't get a seat. But a lovely couple sitting at the side of the front door called us over because there was room beside them. So they invited us to come and join them.
Nice.
I mean, even that's lovely. But then when we said to them, oh, we've just come from a whiskey tasting, the man just thrust his Glencairn at me and went, oh, here, try that. And I just thought, that's so Glasgow that you
For sure.
instantly you will share a drink with a complete stranger. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, there's no other invitation needed other than, oh, you like the same thing I do. Here, have some of this, you know.
Oh my God,
That's a great example of the
that
good of
is.
Glasgow, you know.
It just takes me back just quickly, Jen, when we first met in Glasgow, and it was on the first first time we met, we ended up in a whiskey bar and we ended up talking about the podcast. And I asked Jen if she wants to do a podcast with me, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. And because we're just like, and it's just such a,
I think people do wear their heart on their sleeve, as Scots, but particularly in Glasgow. And there can be aspects that are rough and ready, but there's a beautiful, heartfelt charm about that, in my opinion. And it's a city, if you were ever in trouble, you would have, a handful of strangers that would be willing to help you. And
exactly.
I think that's really lovely, Neill, that you are perhaps being a real contributor to putting it more on the whiskey map and drawing like curious tourists to the city, and not only that, but kind of facilitating, I imagine, and tastings and tours and things, a real essence of that, by sharing your kind of wisdom, history, personality, all that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. We want to, I suppose Glasgow is different from any other part of Scotland. It very much has its own unique atmosphere, its own unique vibe. And we think that's quite fun to put that and whiskey together, because, I mean, look, I adore whiskey and I am like a total whiskey geek myself. But I think sometimes some of the sort of pretentiousness and the snobbery that comes hand in hand with whiskey can be quite off-putting for people. And maybe it's a bit of a barrier to getting more people involved sometimes. So I think by taking the sort of Glaswegian approach to things, we don't react very well to snobbery and pretentiousness. Glasgow's the least pretentious city in the world, I think there's a great quote from Anthony Bourdain. I might be murdering the pronunciation of his surname there, but he called Glasgow the most bullshit-free place in the world. I think he also called it the antidote to the rest of the world. And it's so true, it just, people don't tolerate snobbery or anything here. It's just not the way. So I think kind of framing whiskey in that context, I think, is quite refreshing. And hopefully, as well as sort of being good for Glasgow, hopefully it might encourage more people into whiskey, because we're doing it. I mean, the whole idea with the event that we're organising at the minute, so we're doing a night in the Old Toll Bar in Glasgow, and it's all about, we're going to have a whiskey tasting, but it's going to be very sort of relaxed, not like a big long presentation. We're going to present some whiskies, then there's going to be some live music, there's going to be a cocktail. We've even got, if people want to bring a friend or a spouse or a partner along who's maybe not a whiskey drinker, we've got alternative drinks like a cocktail list that they can have instead of the whiskey. Because again, it's all just about getting people in the door.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's just trying to give people new ways to enjoy whiskey, new events, sort of a bit more relaxed. It's a Friday night, so people can just come and have fun and not feel like they're being lectured to,
Absolutely. Inka and I are kind of bummed because neither of us can come, and it's got our, all the favorite components of life that we love.
Just so many nice pubs as well, like that, that Old Toll, and cute little places.
Absolutely, yeah. Glasgow's blessed with pubs, it really is.
Definitely. Can I just pick up on something you mentioned there, Neill, like your Facebook and your YouTube, A Scotch on Scotch, and I remember reading one of your pieces, like how brilliant and inclusive an industry it could be, and how amazing that people from different parts of the world, like our Inka from Finland living in Italy, writing and passionate about whiskey, but you wanted, the sort of the value as well of a Scotsman on Scotch. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so that came about really. So, but when I originally started writing about whiskey, my blog was called whiskyreviews.net, which took me about 30 seconds to think up, as you can probably tell. And I mean, at the time, I thought it would be good just to have some, it does exactly what it says on the tin kind of thing, but I suppose over the years, I kind of thought it's a bit generic, isn't it? And I was always kind of thinking it'd be quite nice to rebrand. But then I decided to start doing videos on YouTube. And again, I needed a kind of catchy name for the YouTube channel. And I ended up going with A Scot on Scotch. Now that it was kind of borrowed from, I don't say kind of borrowed, it was wholeheartedly stolen from a great book that came out in the 1990s, and it was published by the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. It was sort of edited by their founder, Pip Hills. It was like curated by Pip Hills. It was called Scots on Scotch, and it was lots of Scottish writers giving unique sort of perspectives on the world of whiskey as it was back then, and really trying to sort of ground it in Scottish culture. And that just kind of appealed to me, because sometimes it does feel like, you know, Scotch whisky has become this global product, and sometimes you worry it's losing its identity a little bit. I mean, I need to be clear that I have no problem with other people liking whiskey, obviously. It's
Sure.
brilliant that it's such a popular thing and that people all over the world want to know more and want to get involved. That's fantastic. But I suppose I'm more trying to talk to people in Scotland, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we really appreciate what we have, you know,
I
us being
agree.
the sort of general public, you know. I
Oh
don't
my
think we
God, yeah.
appreciate there what we
Mhm.
actually have, you know.
Oh my God, the number of Scottish people that I've been talking to, like about whiskey, and oh no, I don't really like whiskey. And like, what? How can you
Yeah.
not drink whiskey when it's such a, I don't know, maybe it's just you've seen your grandfather or your father, or like someone like, you know, over enjoying it or something, or there's like this kind of taboo around it, maybe even like an old school kind of view. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I feel like more
I think it's
Scottish should appreciate it.
sorry. I was just going to say, I think it links back to like what Neil was saying about sometimes your early foray into tasting whiskey and like rowdy house parties or quarter bottles in parks. And sometimes that, you know, we don't appreciate what's always in front of us or think about it, or maybe have connotations of it to do with, you know, elitist parts of the population that kind of swan into Scotland and enjoy it from a kind of a luxury pleasure perspective. So I think, again, that's so cool to have people like yourself, Inka, and what you're doing, Neil, both in writing and events and stuff. I think it does get people maybe talking or thinking about it differently, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, there's room for everyone, right? So, you know, it doesn't need to be one or the other. It's great to have as many voices as possible, all discussing and opining and ranting about whiskey. It's brilliant. It makes it really lively and exciting. But yeah, sometimes I wish there was a few more Scottish people expressing their interest, you know. I think it goes a wee bit back to what I was saying earlier about maybe the sort of dislike for pretentiousness and stuff. And you know, whiskey has built up this sort of veneer of kind of, you know, there's certain rules that you have to follow. You don't mix it. You have to drink it in this kind of glass, you know. And again, I think that's off-putting for a lot of people. Whereas you look at, I mean, how many people in Scotland drink Jack Daniels and Coke? I mean, there's thousands of them, you know, because there's no airs and graces about it. It's just accepted that that's okay to do. But people would never dream of putting like Scotch whiskey in Coke, you know, because we've built up this whole thing of no, you mustn't ever do that, you know, and it
Yeah.
just all it's doing is stopping people from getting involved.
Jen, I'm looking at you with your wee
I'm
Coca-Cola.
a strong advocate of the Coke Zero Chaser.
Yeah, quite
Yeah,
right.
you
Yeah.
do use it as a chaser, so you don't like put it in your whiskey, but yeah.
But yeah, any way goes for sure.
Yeah,
So,
quite right. Yeah.
but you're also involved in the Isla Whiskey Academy. What is your part in that? Like, what is it? Is it a whiskey school? Like, I first thought it was a whiskey club that you'd like tastings and stuff, but then I was looking more into it. It's like, oh, it's actually a proper setup, like a
Yeah,
school.
so yeah, I mean the Isla Whiskey Academy, it's an absolute privilege to be involved in. It is a whiskey school essentially. I mean, you know, it's involved in a lot of things, but primarily it's a sort of educational institution, if you like. So it was started by Rachel McNeil, who is an Isla native. Well, technically she was born in Colonsay, but has lived in Isla most of her life. She is a whiskey aficionado. She is, you know, steeped in Scottish culture and in whiskey culture, and she wanted to start something for all the people all over the world who are really interested in Isla. She wanted to be able to give them this sort of fully immersive experience. So people come over for the week. Well, it's sort of 6 nights. You go and come over on Sunday and then they go home on the following Saturday. So it's a full residential diploma. You spend the whole week there. In the mornings, we have lectures and talks from sort of industry professionals. And then in the afternoons, we go to distilleries for sort of full in-depth tours and warehouse tastings. And then quite often there's like tasting events laid on in the evening and things as well. So it is a phenomenal week, and it's, people from all over the world come. We got lots of Americans, lots of Europeans, we've had lots of Asians, and it always astonishes me just how well everyone gets on, and maybe that sounds silly, but again, whiskey has this great unifying sort of ability, that it brings people from all different cultures and backgrounds, and the world can seem quite divided at times, politically and stuff. There's a lot going on just now that it's very easy for people to fall out over. But when you put them all in a room together and put a glass in their hand, it's amazing how well everybody gets on, But yeah, so my role is, my title is kinship host. So the kinship is like the group of students who have done Islay Whisky Academy experiences in the past. And my role is to sort of look after them, make sure that we've got sort of online tasting events and stuff, or gatherings. We always do a wee Christmas get together when everyone gets on Zoom, and there's people from all over the world on it. And so yeah, it's my job to kind of try and keep all that together. And whenever the residential diploma is on, I go over and help out, run a wee tasting over there, and just generally sort of herd the cats around to make sure they're all in the right place. But it's phenomenal. I think the work that Rachel has done is amazing in getting it set up. She's built something really special. And I mean, you mentioned how long I'd been doing a blog. Rachel was one of the first people, I think, maybe the first, I can't be totally sure on that, but to sort of write about whiskey from the woman's perspective. She was a real pioneer of that. Her blog was called Whiskey for Girls, and that was before the Islay Whisky Academy came along. That was how she kind of got back into the whiskey world, through writing the blog. And yeah, she's ahead of the curve on most things, I find. So she's brilliant. And for somebody who loves Islay as much as I do, it is kind of an honour for people to ask you to come over and sort of represent Islay.
Sure.
That's not something I take lightly. It's a real privilege to be involved in it.
Sounds amazing. Sounds good fun.
And so connecting for you to have all those links across the world.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, you get to meet all kinds of people, and you stay in touch with them all, and it's funny because you go over and you spend a bit, and you're in each other's pockets for like six whole nights. You're in each other's pockets, and you get to know each other really well in that time. You all bond very closely.
Yeah.
And it's always really sad at the end because, we're all at the four corners of the world, and the chances of ever actually seeing each other again, it's not always that good. So, there's more than a few people have got quite emotional. We do a sort of graduation dinner on the Friday night, and people get very emotional about it. We sometimes, everybody will stand up and do a wee toast. And people have got very emotional, because they're...
I want to do that, Jen. Can we go?
I want to go.
Oh, you'd be more than welcome. It's a brilliant week. It's just, I mean, we've had during the graduation dinner, we've had Highland dancers come in and perform for them, and
cool.
We've got there's a sort of local storyteller who comes in and tells old Celtic folk tales and stuff. One year we even had one of the students was an opera singer. That was his profession.
Wow.
And he gave us a couple of songs as well. It was unbelievable, Yeah, just wild. It seems to attract really interesting people,
Well, now they can all assemble again. Interesting people assemble for Scottish Rogue events in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah, that's kind. I mean, that was part of the sort of thinking behind it. Really was a lot of the people were flying into Glasgow before they went to Islay, and I was thinking, there's not really anything laid on for them when they're in Glasgow, and quite a lot of them are sort of messaging and saying, "Oh, I'll be back in Glasgow in 6 months. Are you around?" And I'm thinking I should be putting something on for them,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thinking behind it, really.
Do you have a favorite Islay whiskey or distillery?
It depends what day you ask me.
Yeah.
I have a big love for Bruichladdich. They're kind of my favourite, I suppose. But I mean, I love all of them. I've got a real soft spot for Bowmore. But yeah, Bruichladdich, I think the very first time I went to Islay, we hadn't even planned to go to Bruichladdich. It was a very last minute thing. We had a free afternoon, and we gave them a call and asked if we could go on a tour. And they said, unfortunately, sorry, my puppy is barking in the background, by the way.
That's fine. All puppy barks welcome.
Yeah, so we hadn't planned to go, but we rang them up and they were able to accommodate us. But the distillery was closed for maintenance, so we couldn't do a full tour. But they told us to come over and they would show us around some of the warehouses and pour us a few drams and then send us on our merry way, you know. And we went there and they must have poured 6 or 7 whiskies for us. I think they charged us £5 or something like that. And they poured us 6 or 7 whiskies, one of which was my first ever taste of Octomore, which blew my mind. And then even when we were leaving, the distillery manager at the time was a man called Duncan McGilvery, who's sadly no longer with us. But Duncan was there that day and he poured me my Octomore. When we were leaving, we were asking them, you know, where's the Port Charlotte Hotel? How far away is it? And they were like, oh, it's about 20 minutes down the road. We're like, right, okay, we're about to walk down. And they were like, oh, you're not walking in that weather, are you? And we're like, yeah, we are. And they were like, no, you're not. And they went and got the minibus and drove us down to the hotel.
Oh, that's classy.
All of us went in there that day with Bruichladdich as an afterthought, but we all left as kind of lifelong fans, you know. So
that's nice.
I think the hospitality there is unlike anywhere else, still to this day, I think. So that's a favourite.
Yeah, the Octomore always makes me think of Jen trying it for the first time, and I really hoping that we were doing a video podcast because it was hilarious.
Yeah, I was quite enjoying it, but my face didn't look as if it was.
Yeah, you weren't really into peated whiskies at that time. That probably wasn't a good way to start.
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of twitching going on. Yeah.
I think it's one of life's great pleasures as a whiskey lover, though, to try and introduce people to smoky whiskey, you know. The reactions are priceless sometimes.
Oh, well, that's what we did a whole episode on Artberg and like some of the core range releases, and that's kind of what finally I think was a turning point for you.
Definitely.
That was fun for me.
My barriers were broken down.
Yeah.
I think it is something that people do seem to acquire a taste for. I mean, the first time you try a smoky whiskey, it's so unlike anything else you've ever tried, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Negronis of the whiskey world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Neill, is there anything else that you want to like plug about Scottish Rogue or?
I mean, no, just we're at scottish.rogue.co.uk. As I say, we are going to be doing walking tours around the city of Glasgow where we touch on some of the whiskey's sort of city history, some of the city's whiskey history, and we stop off in some of the best pubs. So we go to the Scotia, which is the oldest pub in Glasgow.
Oh, nice.
We go to the Piper Bar, and then we go to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So you get a few drams along with your history walk. We are going to be doing distillery tours, and as I say, lots of different events. The one we're doing kind of this week, we're hoping is going to be a regular thing. If it all goes well and works out, then it will become a sort of monthly event, we hope. So if you can't make this one, hopefully maybe the next one.
Yeah, this one, it might be passed by the time our episode goes live. So that's great to hear that. That's great to hear that there's hopefully going to be potentially more.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, the ticket sales have gone really well. It would be nice to get a shift another couple, but it's gone really well. So we're just a tiny bit short of what we were hoping. So we're really happy with it. And yeah, if it all runs smoothly on the night, I think the pub will be quite keen to have us back. So all going well.
Brilliant. Well, Neill, it sounds like your whiskey journey to date has been pretty special. But if you were to add a celebrity into the mix, who would you choose and what whiskey would you have with them as your dream dram?
I don't really know, to be honest. My dream dram probably would be like a really old Bowmore, I think. I have a real soft spot for Bowmore, as I mentioned earlier, but in particular, a Bowmore that's in a kind of refill cask. When you leave it alone for a long time, Bowmore becomes really sort of tropical and light and beautiful, and it seems to get more of its kind of coastal saltiness as well. I think when Bowmore's in sherry casks, which a lot of them are, it loses a bit of its kind of island identity a wee bit. But when it's in refill casks, you get this lovely fruity character with a much more of the salt. So I'd pick a really old sort of Bowmore, maybe 25 years old or something, but just from a refill cask. Who I would have it with, I don't know, to be honest. Somebody like Billy Connolly would be good fun, I suppose. We're from Glasgow, so we grew up listening to Billy Connolly, which probably wasn't very good parenting on my mum and dad's part, to be honest.
Anybody that grew up in Scotland and didn't hear the likes of the
well,
Jobby Feaker as part of their
it's
childhood.
funny. That's the exact thing that was in my head there. I remember listening to that on like a record,
Me too.
Yeah, I used to listen to that on a record and the crucifixion and all that. He didn't
Yeah.
swear as much in those days, right enough, but
That's right.
now he doesn't drink now and he's not very well, unfortunately. But yeah, it'd be nice to get a night out with Billy at his peak, I suppose.
I think that's a brilliant
yeah.
choice. I'm
I
a
know.
massive fan. A few years ago, I saw him in an airport and he was just everything I hoped he would be. He just looked so fabulous. And at one point, the person he was traveling with was late with was kind of footering about with his bag. And I just heard him say, "Give me the fucking bag." And I just thought, oh, that's Billy Connolly. And I was so excited.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah,
Amazing.
that just cut straight to the chase.
Neill, it's really lovely to speak to you again. I've been to, one of your tastings, kindly invited along to one of your tastings, which I really, really loved. And Inka and I saw you at the Glasgow Whisky Festival, and we heard out that there was something in the pipeline. So it's really nice to hear more about Scottish Rogue, and we'll keep our listeners posted with anything. Please let us know. It would be good to spread the word.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This has been really fun. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I love what you guys do, so it's a real honour to be invited on.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully we'll raise a glass together in Glasgow at some point soon.
Sounds good. Lovely. Thank you.
Cheers, Neill.
You've been listening to the Whisky Sisters podcast.
Kind of sad though we're not heading off to Whisky Rogues like tunes and drinking and whiskey palling. That sounds super
I
fun.
know, but I
doesn't it?
think we need to add one on the agenda next time we're both in the city at the same time and
sure.
they're organising something. I think it would
Whisky
be good fun.
Sisters at Scottish Rogue. Yes, we'll keep.
Yeah, Whisky Sisters going rogue.
Yeah, love it.
So that is for today, and next time we will be indulging on Easter treats.
Yum, yum. Yes, 3 chocolatey whiskies are on the tasting table. Meanwhile, you know the drill. Follow us, whiskey lovers, on at whiskysisters.podcast on Instagram, at Whisky Sisters on X, and good old-fashioned Facebook at Whisky Sisters Podcast. Inka, I hope you can breathe safely for the rest of the month, and I'll see you next time, sugar.
See you next time.
Deep inhale, exhale, inhale.
I know, I need some steam room or sauna.
Yeah, for sure. May your glass be full
and your dram on fire.